yeah, please sign in if you haven't. There's this QR code. Give like about a minute, but we'll also have the sign-in form later. Coolio. All right. Also, let me know if the volume is good. I know sometimes the music can be too much. Okay. All right, so here's the agenda for today. We're going to first start off with like general basics about each of the programs, talking about, if you've never seen this program before, how do you get started modeling things? After you learn the basics with our hosts, we're going to present a little challenge thing for you all to try and complete. It's going to be super fun and put your newly found skills to the test. We'll have an opportunity for folks to share what they've made. And if you want to share, we'll also potentially be posting what you end up creating on the AIChE Projects website, which is super exciting. And we hope you choose to participate. And at the very end, we're just going to close it up with a little bit of Q&A. Asking any general questions you may have about either software, its applications, or maybe further jumping off points for learning. All right, that is the general agenda. Just going to really quick introduce our presenters and hosts. We have Animesh and Arturo. They'll introduce themselves more in detail in their respective rooms, but Animesh is going to be doing Fusion 360 and Arturo is going to be doing SolidWorks. So there's kind of two concurrent workshops that will be going on at the same time, and then later on we'll all meet up together for the little challenge thing. All right. I think that is it. Anyone have any questions about logistics or anything like that before we go into breakout rooms?
Load, and let me know if you see what I have on my screen.
Yeah, we see.
Okay. Everyone else? Okay. So the first thing you want to get familiar with is, of course, you want to open a new part. So we'll be going over making parts, and then we're going to finalize it with making an assembly, which is not as scary as it sounds or looks. So first off, I want everyone to click on part and just click OK. It might take a little bit as well. Okay. All right, cool. Does everyone see the screen? All right. So I'm going to be teaching you like a bunch of little tricks that not a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people use these tricks. I'll be going over. The first thing you want to do when making a sketch is, if you see over here on the top left corner is the sketch button. So I'm going to go ahead and press that and start a sketch. So you just click on sketch. So hopefully you can all see that you have different planes here. So of course, when you're starting a sketch, you need a plane to work on. And I usually just go for a front plane since it's easier to orient myself around it. So you just click on front plane and you see an XY axis. Okay. I'm gonna start by drawing basic shapes. So if you see over here on this like corner, you have a lot of different shapes that you can use. The most common ones are, of course, lines, circles, and rectangles. So I'm going to start by clicking on a rectangle. Also forgot to mention that like if you go on the arrows, you have a lot more options, a lot more types of different shapes to use. But I'm going to go with a standard corner rectangle. So if you notice, you can drag your mouse around and it kind of like gives you guidance. Like if you see here in the center, this is your origin, of course, and then you go up and down the y-axis and then x-axis. What I always do, it's a good practice to kind of start your drawing like right on the origin. Just it makes everything easier in terms of dimensioning. So I'm just going to make a box. And in case y'all are wondering, zooming in and out is with the wheel. you scroll the wheel up and down, and you can also eventually, when we get to 3D, we'll be able to orient this object with the wheel as well by clicking it. So cool. So we have a box now, and if you notice, the whole entire sketch is blue. And what this means is that our sketch is underdefined, as you can read down here. So that means that we need to put dimensions into it. And I'll start by going here to Smart Dimension. So clicking on Smart Dimension, if you click down here, it allows you to do other types of dimensioning, which basically Smart Dimension is all of these into one. So that's the best tool to use right away. And you will click on one of the blue corners and drag out and click again. And you can see here the dimensions that we want. So we'll make a 6-inch length here and just click enter. And we'll make a 10-inch length of here. These are just arbitrary numbers, by the way, but it's just to dimension. So hopefully y'all get a rectangle like this. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the sketch. And also, as you can see now, the sketch down here says fully defined. So that means that there are no more blue lines, and we have everything fixed on a plane. And in our case, it was fixed on this origin, on this axis, and we have dimensions, lengths for everything. Another thing to mention is that Smart Dimension can also dimension radius, like from circles, and you can also dimension angles. So every time you want to select more than one thing, you can leave Control pressed, and you can just select 2 things. And if I were to dimension this, I would get an angle here. And if I try to do this, you're going to see an error pop out because I already have 2 lengths defined. So if I do go through with this, it will be over dimensioning our piece, our 2D sketch, which just makes everything harder. It's a process. So you do not want to do that. Once it says fully defined here, you can go ahead and close your sketch by pressing, by going over here. And now you have a rectangle. So we're going to convert this rectangle into a 3D shape. And the way you do that is you go over here to Features, and there are 2 main tools we use. One is Extrude, and the other one is Revolve. Extruding is basically just making the figure, the 2D figure, jump out of the paper. So that's what we'll start with. So immediately the software recognizes the shape, and you are able to kind of drag this box, like move it around and play with it. And if we look here, we can see different options, different extruding options. So blind is what it sounds like. You're kind of just guessing, or you can enter a value here. So let's say I want to extrude it 4 inches, press enter. That's a 4-inch extrusion. So now it has this width. And I'll be going over these in a bit. So now we just click the green check mark, click OK, and we have our first 3D shape. So now how I'm moving the piece is by clicking on my scroll wheel and just kind of moving it around. You can also press on spacebar and orient yourself that way if it's easier for you. Okay, was everyone able to get this shape?
Yep.
Okay. Also, the thing I said before about dimensions for sketches, you don't necessarily have to always have a fully defined sketch, but it's just better since you can orient yourself that way. And of course, if you ever want to check dimensions of a 3D piece, you can go over here to evaluate, and you can click on measure, and you can select faces for information like area and perimeter, or you can select edges. So just to kind of so you won't forget what you did. Another way is you can just kind of go down here. This is what we call a tree. So this has all of the steps that you've done since the beginning. So you can see here that it orients itself by 3D pieces. So we have our first extrusion, and if we click down, we can go back to our sketch. And if we want to make edits to our sketch, we just left click here and go back to the sketch this way. Oops. So this allows us to change dimensions and to change anything we want. And it will automatically update the 3D figure. So I'm just going to show you really quick. If I make this 9 inches or 8 inches, it'll close down. And now the figure is updated. So that's just a cool way to kind of, if you need to make any updates as you go, this is what you'll use to orient yourself. Okay.
Quick question.
Hmm?
How do you pan in this?
Oh, to pan, you leave control and then you click the wheel.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go back and show you another cool feature. So I'm gonna actually delete the extrusion we just did. And you can do that by right clicking and just deleting or just hitting delete on your keyboard. And this takes me back to the 2D sketch that we made. So I'm going to once again do the same thing. I'm going to click on extrude and I'm going to select the figure. And I'm going to show you another feature, which is called thin feature. So with this feature, it basically creates like a shell of the figure that you're, it creates a shell of the rectangle. And if you see here, it's creating a shell. I believe it's over our sketch. We can also make it go under our sketch. So we can shell outwards or inwards. For this, I'm going to shell outwards and I'm going to click OK. So now we have a shell of a box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another sketch to this box. So the way I do that is I go back to sketch. And immediately if you select sketch, you can kind of select, you can actually, if you choose to, you can start new sketches on any of these sides. So let's say, I don't know, you want something sticking out of here, you can actually like click on here and just draw anything. And if you see here, this is your new origin at the center. I mean, at this edge right here. I'm not going to be doing that though. You can use Control-Z to go back on any of the steps you did. So I'm using Control-Z and deleting that. What I will do though is, so I'm going to select my plane that I started on, which is the front plane. And I'm going to start a new sketch here. So now my front plane is selected and I can start drawing on it once more. Something really useful to use is center lines. So if you go to lines and you click on the arrow, center lines are considered construction geometry and they don't necessarily show up on your 3D model. And these are lines that you can just kind of draw to guide yourself through your drawing. So I can draw a center line here. And I don't know if you noticed, but the center line actually tells you where the midpoint of your diagonal shape is. So I'm going to draw a circle at this midpoint. And for that, I select circle and I just legit draw a circle. So once finish a circle, I click OK. And then I go back to Smart Dimension and I'm going to dimension this. If you notice, if you drag your mouse around, you can actually see it, the dimension. You can kind of put it wherever you want, just so it doesn't get in the way. I'm just going to drag it over here. And I'm going to make the radius, D1 stands for diameter. So I'm going to make the diameter of this 3 inches. Cool. So this circle with a line across it means diameter. So now we have a circle. And I'm going to exit sketch once again. And now we can actually go back to extrude, and we can click on this new face we made, or it actually automatically selects it. But I'm going to go over other features for extrusion. So it automatically selects blind, automatically kind of brings you to the edge of the box we made, but you can actually change this. So if you want to go through all, it actually does the same thing. It goes through the surface you previously made and up to this surface. Vertex, we haven't made a vertex yet, so won't be going over that. Up to surface, this is useful if you have two different bodies and you kind of want to extrude one part of this to the other part of the body. And then offset, this one's really useful. Okay, offset kind of just gives you an offset. So let me try to do this again. It didn't go through for some reason. Okay, so you select a face here that you want to go through, and I'm just going to select right here. And I'm going to give it an offset of 1 inch. So now you can have this whole thing extruded up to 1 inch away from this surface, or you can reverse the offset and have it offset 1 inch over. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. And a quick summary of what we did was we created a box. We created thin feature, which we can see everything we did here. So we created a box, we extruded it, and then we put thin feature on it to go one direction. And that's created a shell. And then we started a new drawing, a new sketch on the plane that we literally just select front plane and start a new sketch on this plane. And we can start drawing there and just kind of make the shape pop out. And we then extruded the circle. And I just left an offset, but you can pretty much just select whichever dimension you want here. Okay, so hopefully you can now guide yourself around extrusions. They're not that bad. They're very, very, very useful. They're usually the first thing you want to do when creating a 3D shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this. You can actually delete everything you did. I encourage you to do that because we're going to start a new sketch. So you can just go ahead and delete everything. Okay, so once you delete everything, the last thing here should be origin. Oof, there's my camera. Okay. And now I'm going to go through the Revolved Boss feature. But in order to get here, we have to first start once again with a 2D shape. So I'm going to hit sketch and go back to front plane. And hopefully everyone's here. Then I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Start with the rectangle. This time I'm going to make the length longer than the width. And just an arbitrary length. I'm not going to dimension it yet. So next, I'm going to draw a circle at this edge, going to this edge. So hopefully everyone has a similar drawing. What I'm going to do now is draw a line going from this edge to this point. And I'm going to show you a really cool feature, which is also really useful when you're making your drawings. It's called trim entities. So you want to go ahead and click on this. And what this allows us to do is we can drag our mouse. You leave it pressed and you kind of see it's like cutting. So you drag and it cuts. You drag through the line and it cuts. And you drag through this line, and this is what I'm left with. So we have this kind of this weird shape. Okay, and I'm not going to dimension this. Once again, you do not need to dimension if you want to create a 3D sketch, but it's always very, very useful, and it's a good practice you do. So this is just for the purpose of showing you a feature. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on the trim, and then you can go ahead and exit the sketch. So now we have this blue outline, and I will go to Revolved Boss. It's right next to Extrude. Click on that, and immediately you should see this little arrow, and right here it's asking us to input an axis of revolution. So what this feature does is you select an axis and it revolves around it. So you click OK, and now you have this bullet looking thing. So this is very helpful in making like rods, and like you can make tubes and stuff like that. Did everyone get this, or anyone have any issues?
Could you go back to when you had the sketch and then use the Revolved Boss?
Okay, so here's just the sketch. I'm going to click on Revolved Boss and click on Sketch, and then click Revolve Boss. So this lets you this makes you select an axis of revolution. So I wanted to revolve around this axis, right, to make like a little pill shape, bullet shape thing. You can actually select any axis for it to revolve around, but it's going, I don't know, let's see what happens. We revolve here. It's a completely different shape. It's now like a disc kind of thing. So you can kind of mess around with that. Yeah, a lot of weird shapes. Then you just click OK. Okay. Now I'm going to show you another feature. I'm going to once again delete our progress. So I'm going to delete the the revolve, and delete the sketch. And once again, going back to sketch and going on the front plane. And once again, the front plane is just my personal preference, but you can sketch on whichever plane you want. So now I'm going to draw another box right here. You don't have to dimension it. It's just a random box. Just make sure it kind of looks like this. Okay. Then I'm going to extrude this, and I'm going to go 4 inches again. So now you have another box. So last time what we did with this box is we, in our extrusion, we shelved it in our extrusion with thin feature, and we drew kind of a rod going through it. But this time I'm going to show you other features. So the first one we're going to try out is Extrude Cut. So Extrude Cut allows you to do exactly what the name says. You can cut into any extrusion. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. And it says here, you need to select a plane that you want to cut. So this actually allows you to select any of the planes on here. So if you see them kind of highlighted in orange, that means you can edit those planes and make a cut there, and all of them should be able to light up. I'm going to click right here, and it's going to take you right to sketch. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to draw a center line through this plane, through the surface. And this is kind of something I like having a lot of center lines on my sketches, but it's not always necessary. And then I'm going to click again on not corner rectangle. I'm going to click this time on center rectangle. So what center rectangle allows us to do is I click on the center of this plane, and it allows us to create a rectangle from the middle outwards. So this is another useful feature. I'm gonna stop it right there. And always when I'm done sketching something, I press escape, and that just lets me use my mouse again and not have to draw. So once you have this thickness set, I'm just going to click on exit sketch. And since we selected the cut, it should automatically like go to the feature. So here blindly, it already wants to cut through the whole thing. Once again, we can edit how far it cuts. So let's say I don't want to cut through the whole thing. Let's say I only want to cut 3.4 inches in. It'll leave this space on here, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to cut through all. So right here, you click on through all, and it cuts through the whole box. So we once again arrive at a shell. And I'm going to show you some more useful features. The first one is, let's see. The first one is Fillet. So if you click on this, you'll be able to select edges that you can kind of round. So I'm going to select all of the edges around the box. And what you can do here is if you scroll down your parameters, you can actually change the radius of the edges. So if I keep increasing them, you'll see that they'll get more round. So you can mess around with this too and kind of just choose whichever value you like, and then click OK. And now you have a rounded, all the edges are now rounded off. So you have this kind of smooth looking box thing. So I'm gonna exit. I'm gonna once again delete the fillet, and then I'm going to delete the cut. And this time I'm going to leave the box. So I'm actually deleting the sketch as well. So if you see, every time you delete something, it shows you what you're deleting by outlining it in orange, just so you know what you're deleting. Okay. So once again, I'm going to create a sketch on this surface the same way we did before. So I click on sketch and I select the surface. Okay, if you like notice like this is kind of off, you can always use this 3D axis thing to orient yourself, and I like using it a lot. So here I am. And once again, you can also use spacebar to do this to get the different views. I'm going to once again use my center line construction geometry to find the midpoint. Right here. Then click escape, and if the midpoint sometimes it's a bit finicky and it doesn't want to show up, you kind of have to like mess around with it. You can actually right click on any line and put select midpoint, and it outlines it for you. And then you can go ahead and click on that just so it can pop up. This time, instead of making a rectangular cut, I'm going to make a circular cut. So right at the center, let's make a circle, and then click exit sketch. So you can also exit your sketch by clicking on the top left corner. So now once again, we have a shape drawn onto the surface of another shape, of a 3D shape, and I will once again go to features and go to extrude cut. Okay, once again, you can choose to cut all the way through your figure, but this time I'm not going to cut it all the way. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to leave a little bit of space between the edge and here, and click OK. So now you see a circular hole through your box. And another feature I wanted to go over, we went over Fillet. Another feature is chamfer. So if you click down here, you can choose chamfer. And what this allows us to do is click on a surface. And it kind of gives you a preview. It gives you, it makes this entire circle surface, it gives it an angle, so an incline, kind of. So you can kind of see the preview here of the chamfer. And I think I made the circle a bit too big for this to work. Let me see. Oh, it worked. Cool. But yeah, as you can see here, it kind of cut over here. But once again, if you select an edge, this allows you to kind of make an angled cut through it. Okay, let's see. Another cool thing we can do, I'm going to once again delete everything this time. Okay, another cool feature. This time I'm going to make a sketch, a circular sketch on the front plane. Just make a circle. And then click escape. And what I'm going to do this time is make a smaller circle at the center of this circle. And I'm going to show you linear sketch pattern and circular sketch pattern. So first we'll go to linear sketch pattern, and what you'll notice is it'll ask us to choose something to kind of replicate, and I'm going to click on the circle. And if you go here, you can increase the distance between both circles. So this one is distance, and this is how many like tinier circles you want. If you keep increasing, you'll get more circles. I'm going to leave 4, and then I'm going to click OK. So this is really useful when you kind of want to replicate a shape you have onto another surface. And then I'm going to circular pattern. So this one allows me once again to select multiple sketches, and once again you leave control held to select multiple, and I'm just going to select all 3 of these and click OK. Oh, sorry, before I click OK, one thing I forgot to mention is you can increase the number of circles around the 360 degrees that you want to use. So I'm going to leave just these 4, and then I'm going to click OK. Now I will exit sketch, and I'm going to extrude this shape. So hopefully everyone is able to select, like, kind of, you do not want to extrude these tinier circles, but you can choose to. But everyone can select this surface and extrude this 2 inches and kind of have this. So now we have a disc with a bunch of tiny circles that we drew on there. And let's see, another cool thing we can do is we can actually mirror stuff. So we can use the mirror feature to mirror these 3D objects. And when I do, it says to mirror to mirror face or plane. And I'm going to select this plane and click OK. And it kind of just adds on to it. So you can you can actually use mirror when you're making 2D sketches if you want to make something symmetrical as well. It's really helpful. Just going over last things. I'm going to go over these icons here. So the first one, you can kind of add shadows to your feature, to your 3D sketch, but I usually remove them because it makes the software a bit slower. guess you can make a wicked cartoon. And this one's also useful. It allows you to choose a background. So this changes the background of SolidWorks in total. I kind of keep the standard one. You click on this one, it allows you to change the color of your material. So you can actually go down here and select a color for it. And this is just, these are just cool things you can do with your 3D parts. Then click OK. You can select whichever color you want. This eyeball thingy, I do not use this too much. I think, yeah, I actually have not used this before, but I'm pretty sure that was supposed to give us a grid. Gonna get away from there. This box right here. So you can see right now, we're able to see our model pretty clearly with lines defined. If we click here, we can remove those lines, and we can even have a 3D view of just the 2D sketches. Oops. I'm going to go back to the original one. This is literally the same thing as pressing spacebar. So pressing spacebar and going here to a new view. Section view. So this one's pretty interesting. You can choose which view, which plane to view from. So you can actually, if you don't see any other planes here, you can click on this other tree and you can choose different axes to kind of see your cross sections at. So keep in mind, this actually doesn't cut your figure. It just gives you a view. And it's pretty useful if you want to see what you're doing inside your figure. And if you select it again, it'll give you your figure back. So do not worry, it did not disappear. Previous view just kind of goes back to what you had before. So literally every action. And you have zoom in and zoom to fit, but usually using the scroll wheel is the best way to get there. Okay. So that was actually, yeah, that was a lot of information compacted. Does anyone have any questions? Or does anyone want me to go over anything again?
Do you have any examples of cool projects you've worked on in the past?
I can try to pull some out. If you don't mind, I can actually show something I've been working on for the AIChE project. Diana?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
All right, cool. Let me pull it up. Oh wait, sorry. Before I do that, I think I have around 3 minutes to show you how to do this very important thing you'll need right now. My bad, I forgot to look at the time. Okay, so I'm going to show you another important aspect of SolidWorks really quick, and that is assembly. So we're going to create. I want you to follow along with me and create these parts, and then we'll assemble them. And it actually does not take too long, so we should be fine. So we go to sketch once again. Sorry about that. And then we click on circle. Oops. From plane. Kind of give me a weird view because I was messing around with the views. Uh-oh. Okay. We can draw a circle. So here dimensions matter. So I'm going to make a circle and I'm going to smart dimensions. And I'm going to make this a 3-inch circle, 3-inch diameter. And I'm going to click exit sketch. And I'm going to extrude the circle. So I'm going to extrude it by 1/2 inch and click OK. So 0.5 inches. And now I'm going to draw on this circle another sketch. So you choose a plane And this time I selected the middle as my origin, which is great, because I'm going to draw another circle on here. This one with a tinier radius. So I'm going to exit. And oh yeah, sorry. One thing that you can also do is you can click S on your keyboard, and it automatically gives you all of these options. So usually when I'm dimensioning, I don't like dragging my mouse all the way here. I'll just click on S and just select dimension. And I'm going to make this one 1 inch. Click enter and exit the sketch. And I'm going to extrude this little circle we just made. So I'm going to extrude this one 3 inches. So the thing to keep in mind here is our smaller circle is 3 inches long and it's 1 inch in diameter. And I'm going to save this part. So you can save your parts by going up here. And I'm going to name pen. And just make sure you save it somewhere where you can access it easily. Okay. And now I'm going to start a new part by clicking on the blank page here and starting a new part. Cool. So once again, I'll go back to my sketch and select the front plane, and this time draw a box. So it'll memorize the one we chose last time. In this case, it's center rectangle, which I don't want. I want to reselect corner rectangle, go back here and draw a rectangle. And I'm going to dimension this rectangle now. So I'm going to make it 4 inches and make the top 6 inches. Okay, then we exit sketch. We extrude it. Does anyone remember how long the little circle was that we made? It was 4 inches, right?
That 3 or 4, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think it was
3 and
3.
1.
3, yeah.
Okay, I'll just make it 4 inches just in case. Okay, so 4 inches length. Click OK. Then I'm going to draw a circle on this. So I'm going to cut a circle through this, through the shape, basically. So I go back to sketch. Click on this plane. I always like to draw the center line, just so I can draw a circle right through it. Then draw my circle. And dimension the circle to 1 inch. It's gonna look really weird, but it'll work. So now we exit the sketch and we go to Extrude Cut. And the circle should actually be through all, and it's already automatically selected. Click on OK. And now that you have this thing, you save this as well to the same place you saved your other one, your other part. And I'm just going to name this box. Cool. So hopefully you have everything, both those parts saved. And now we're going to do an assembly. So you want to click on new again, and this time instead of part, you click on assembly, and then you click OK. And this takes a little bit, but then it should load up soon. Okay. So now you see this, and over here on the left side, it actually allows you to, if you have the parts open up already, I think you can go ahead and drag them out. So I'm going to click on box and place it. And now you put insert components and select your other piece, so pin. So we have a box and a pin. One important thing to note here is that this box has like an F next to it. And what that means is that if you left click on it and you try to move it, you cannot move this because it is fixed. So all of your assembly will be relative to this box now. You can move the same way you move your 3D part in the drawing, and if you actually left click on the piece that is not fixed, you can move it all around. So I can move this up and down, left and right, and if you leave right click pressed, you can rotate the piece. So your best friend in assembly is literally this button right here called mate. What I will do is I will mate these two pieces together now. So what I do is click on mate, and this allows you to select, you can select edges, surfaces, and sometimes even axis, like through the center of a rod, let's say. But for this, I'm going to select this face, and the second for the mate, I'm going to select this inside. So if you can see, it kind of like highlights the whole thing. That's what you want to see. Then you click on OK, and this is called a concentric mate because it's mating at the center. So now that we did this mate, I'm just gonna exit out of it, and you see that you can move the piece up and down, but it's still kind of, it's not where we want it to be yet. We want it to be right here. So what we do is we click on mate once again, and now we select this surface. Oh, sorry. Click on mate and select this surface and this surface, and it pushes the pin down onto the box, and we can exit. And now our future is fully mated, and this is one whole part by itself. And if you go down, I think Nick, you were right, it was 3 inches. I mean, yeah, I kind of made the box longer, but that's it. We can see the pin through it. Okay. So any questions about the assembly? Thank you. All right, I guess I'll showcase what I was working on. So I'll open that up. Oh, okay. This is not the updated one, but anyways, this is just like a whole entire assembly of kind of a burette. We have a stand, beakers. I always forget what this tube is called, but we use it for filtering. And hopefully you can all see that creating parts like this is not all that hard. In fact, yeah, it's actually not that bad at all. So hopefully you're a bit more comfortable with SolidWorks now. Then you can move this assembly around. I'm also going to, since I have time, I think a few minutes, I'm going to exit out of my assembly, and I'm going to start a new part just to show you other ways of thinking about stuff. So we saw when we made the bullet shape thing that, I'll just start sketching. You don't have to copy this, but you can go along if you want. I'm just going to start a new sketch from plane. So I'm going to show you different ways to make simple shapes. So I'm just going to go ahead and exit. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways of making a rod. So the first way, of course, should be to make an extrusion and just kind of drag it out. And now we have a rod. And another way you can create a rod, I'm just going to start a new part. Is you can start by kind of drawing, you can draw a rectangle or a line. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Then you exit sketch, go to features, and instead of extrusion, you can do revolve, and I'll select this axis. And there you go. There you have a rod. So there's multiple ways about going like through many parts. You can make a lot of the same shapes like through different methods. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you combine different assemblies?
11?
Could you combine different assemblies?
I have not attempted to do so. I think that most of the times, I think you can combine some assemblies, and if not, you'll most likely have to like kind of download all of their parts and kind of like paste them onto your assembly. But I think I see what you mean. Like, let's say like two different team members come up with an assembly that kind of needs to be put together, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you can combine some assemblies. Yeah.
Okay. And then, are you able to split parts up in an assembly after you combine them?
Okay. Yeah. Let me go back to assembly then. So I'm just going to hold shift and just click on both of them. Place one down, place the other one down. So let's say I mated them already. Oh. Okay. So if you want to get rid of this mate, all you have to do is you go down here to this tree, and you can kind of look at which mate it is. Let's say I want to select the coincident mate, which this basically makes two surfaces touch. I just click delete and say yes, and now I can go back to this. So, and you can of course always click Control Z and just go back on any mistakes you made. So yeah, you can always go back to scratch.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So before we present the design challenge, I guess I'll leave everyone to kind of like mess around with the software and make some weird shapes. And you guys, if you have any questions, I'm here for troubleshooting. And thank you everyone for coming, of course. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing. I believe everyone should be allowed to screen share. If not, let me know. If you have any questions, just please do so. Click on this plane. I always like to draw the center line, just so I can draw a circle right through it. Then draw my circle. And dimension the circle to 1 inch. It's gonna look really weird, but it'll work. So now we exit the sketch and we go to Extrude Cut. And the circle should actually be through all, and it's already automatically selected. Click on OK. And now that you have this thing, you save this as well to the same place you saved your other part. And I'm just gonna need this box. Cool. So hopefully you have everything, both those parts saved. And now we're going to do an assembly. So you want to click on new again, and this time instead of part, you click on assembly, and then you click OK. And this takes a little bit, but then it should load up soon. Okay. So now you see this, and over here on the left side, it actually allows you to, if you have the parts open up already, I think you can go ahead and drag them out. So I'm going to click on box and place it. And now you put insert components and select your other piece. So pin. So we have a box and a pin. One important thing to note here is that this box has like an F next to it. And what that means is that if you left click on it and you try to move it, you cannot move this because it is fixed. So all of your assembly will be relative to this box now. You can move the same way you move your 3D part in the drawing. And if you actually left click on the piece that is not fixed, you can move it all around. So I can move this up and down, left and right. And if you leave right click pressed, you can rotate the piece. So your best friend in assembly is literally this button right here called mate. What I will do is I will mate these two pieces together now. So what I do is click on mate, and this allows you to select, you can select edges, surfaces, and sometimes even axis, like through the center of a rod, let's say. But for this, I'm going to select this face. And the second, for the mate, I'm going to select this inside. So if you can see, it kind of like highlights the whole thing. That's what you want to see. Then you click on OK. And this is called the concentric mate because it's mating at the center. So now that we did this mate, I'm just gonna exit out of it, and you see that you can move the piece up and down, but it's still kind of, it's not where we want it to be yet. We want it to be right here. So what we do is we click on mate once again, and now we select this surface. Oh, sorry, click on mate and select this surface and this surface, and it pushes the pin down onto the box, and we can exit. And now our future is fully mated, and this is one whole part by itself. And if you go down, I think Nick, you were right, it was 3 inches. I mean, yeah, I kind of made the box longer, but that's it. We can see the pin through it. Okay. So any questions about the assembly? Thank you. All right, I guess I'll showcase what I was working on. So I'll open that up. Oh, okay. This is not the updated one, but anyways, this is just like a whole entire assembly of kind of a burette. We have a stand, beakers. I always forget what this tube is called, but we use it for filtering. And hopefully you can all see that creating parts like this is not all that hard. In fact, yeah, it's actually not that bad at all. So hopefully you're a bit more comfortable with SolidWorks now. Then you can move this assembly around. I'm also going to, since I have time, I think a few minutes, I'm going to exit out of my assembly, and I'm going to start a new part just to show you other ways of thinking about stuff. So we saw when we made the bullet shape thing that, I'll just start sketching. You don't have to copy this, but you can go along if you want. I'm just going to start a new sketch from plane. So I'm going to show you different ways to make simple shapes. So I'm just going to go ahead and exit. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways of making a rod. So the first way, of course, should be to make an extrusion and just kind of drag it out. And now we have a rod. And another way you can create a rod, I'm just going to start a new part. Is you can start by kind of drawing, you can draw a rectangle or a line, I'm going to draw a rectangle. Then you exit sketch, go to features, and instead of extrusion, you can do revolve, and also like this axis. And there you go. There you have a rod. So there's multiple ways about going like through many parts. You can make a lot of the same shapes like through different methods. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you combine different assemblies?
11?
Could you combine different assemblies?
I have not attempted to do so. I think that most of the times, I think you can combine some assemblies, and if not, you'll most likely have to like kind of download all of their parts and kind of like paste them onto your assembly. But I think I see what you mean. Like, let's say like two different team members come up with an assembly that kind of needs to be put together, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you can combine some assemblies. Yeah.
Okay. And then, are you able to split parts up in an assembly after you combine them?
Okay. Yeah. Let me go back to assembly then. So I'm just going to hold shift and just click on both of them. Place one down, place the other one down. So let's say I mated them already. Whoa. Okay. So if you want to get rid of this mate, all you have to do is you go down here to this tree, and you can kind of look at which mate it is. Let's say I want to select the coincident mate, which just basically makes two surfaces touch. I just click delete and say yes, and now I can go back to this. So, and you can of course always click Control Z and just go back on any mistakes you made. So yeah, you can always go back to scratch.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So before we present the design challenge, I guess I'll leave everyone to kind of like mess around with the software and make some weird shapes. And you guys, if you have any questions, I'm here for troubleshooting. Is you can start by kind of drawing, you can draw a rectangle or a line. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Then you exit sketch, go to features, and instead of extrusion, you can do revolve, and also like this axis. And there you go. There you have a rod. So there's multiple ways about going like through many parts. You can make a lot of the same shapes like through different methods. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you combine different assemblies?
11?
Could you combine different assemblies?
I have not attempted to do so. I think that most of the times, I think you can combine some assemblies, and if not, you'll most likely have to like kind of download all of their parts and kind of like paste them onto your assembly. But I think I see what you mean. Like, let's say like two different team members come up with an assembly that kind of needs to be put together, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you can combine some assemblies. Yeah.
Okay. And then, are you able to split parts up in an assembly after you combine them?
Okay. Yeah. Let me go back to assembly then. So I'm just going to hold shift and just click on both of them. Place one down, place the other one down. So let's say I mated them already. Whoa. Okay, so if you want to get rid of this mate, all you have to do is you go down here to this tree, and you can kind of look at which mate it is. Let's say I want to select the coincident mate, which this basically makes two surfaces touch. I just click delete and say yes, and now I can go back to this. So, and you can of course always click Control Z and just go back on any mistakes you made. So yeah, you can always go back to scratch.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Table, but you'll have a tabletop, and then you'll have legs to go into the table, and you will also have to make a little foot to go into the table so it doesn't scratch your nice hardwood floor. And you'll need to have 4 legs and a tabletop. We don't really care that much about the dimensions of the tabletop itself, or the legs for that matter, but we do want it to be like a 4-legged table. And if you're extra ambitious, you're also welcome to go ahead and design stuff to put on the tables, like pencils and cups and whatever you want. And then we will be presenting everyone's creations later. So yeah, the way you read these diagrams, I zoom in. Anyway, so I apologize for how small this is, but if you see this 1.8 over here, that means the inner diameter is 1.8 and the outer diameter is 3. And the height of the bottom part of the foot is 0.5 inches, and the height of the top part is also 0.5 inches. And here's an isometric view showing you the whole object. And here's the leg that we have done. The height is 28 inches, the inner diameter is 1.8, and the outer diameter again is 2. And finally, here's the table. And in the table, each of these slots for the legs, they are 2.25 inches from each side. And the dimension of the table is 50 inches by 20 inches by 3 inches. So yeah, you'll be able to see bigger versions of these files with the QR code scan. But yeah, I think your guys' time begins now. So if anyone has any questions, either let me know in the chat or you can speak up. So yep, good luck, y'all.
All right, I'm going to turn off my video because my computer is struggling. Apologies. All right, so welcome back, everyone. Actually, let me pause the music. As lovely as it is. Hopefully, everyone had a very informative and fun experience learning from our wonderful hosts, and that we all kind of got to apply our skills with our table building as well as any other extraneous things we decided to put on. That being said, if anyone at this time would like to kind of show off what they've made, whether that's just a basic table that you're particularly proud of, or if there's anything that you managed to create that goes on top of the table, that would be lovely. Feel free to shoot in the chat or speak up, and you can go ahead and screen share whatever you've made. Who will be the first brave soul? I'm sure whatever you have is wonderful, friends.
I can share mine. Just I kind of combined something I was working on for PWT on the table. So just
Nice. Go ahead and screen share.
Yeah, I think yeah. Here we go. So So here's a table with a burette and some glass and a stand. So yeah, apparently you can combine multiple assemblies into one. And so I just dragged this whole thing and put it on top of a table. Yeah.
Classic. Take me back to like physical lab classes. Holy crap. Yes, if only we had the table IRL. I'm about to like live the rest of my life in quarantine in like SolidWorks and Fusion 360 and just like build campus.
Nice.
Like people who do that, they like do art in like these CAD programs.
It
It's
is
crazy.
insane, yeah.
Jaden, go ahead and show us what you got.
All right. Can I see that? All right, so this is my table. I put Thor's hammer on top of it, and also this thing that I've made previously. It's a little, wait, the zoom controls are in the way. It's a little stand that I put a candle on top of. And so yeah, this is my table, my Thor's hammer, and my candle stand.
Love it. Wow. So simple adding the hammer that we worked on as our little example. Brilliant work, Jaden. Very smart.
Thank you.
I think after us learning this much information, I think we'd all be worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer. That's just my opinion. Anyone else got anything rad to show to everyone? I understand that it wasn't the longest amount of time, so I apologize for expecting folks to go above and beyond. We know we kind of squeezed the time, but we'll know for future reference. So I guess thank you for those of you who shared. We will be trying to post some things onto our website. I don't know if we're just going to take screenshots from this video recording or if we're going to end up reaching out to you, like send an export of like a PDF or something of the file. So just hold on to that. We may reach out to you in the next day or so about that so we can show your beautiful creations to the world. Okay, it's going to be question and answer time now. So, I mean, if you want to keep working on your various things, you can. But ultimately, this is just set aside time. So if you have any general questions about either program or CAD software in general, or like further applications or what you can do with CAD ultimately, this is the space for those questions. And Animesh and Arturo, you can trade off or whatever the question is specific to your given software. But any questions, feel free to speak up or drop them in the chat.
I have a question. So like if you're really good at like one type of CAD, let's say Fusion 360, how easy is it to switch over to something like SolidWorks?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay, I just saw your mic pop on. But really, it's very easy because I learned CAD initially in SolidWorks, and yeah, and then like midway through high school we moved. So in my other high school they were using Autodesk Inventor, which is like Fusion but a bit different, and I had almost no trouble switching. And then from Autodesk Inventor I'm now on Fusion, so it's really not hard. It's because you know the terms and stuff they might use might be a little bit different, but the functions and the animations are often identical.
Great question, Jaden. Anyone else?
Weird question, but how do I delete something? I don't know if you went over that.
Oh, you're on Fusion, right?
Yes.
When you say delete, do you mean like delete something from an assembly, or like from a
like I added an extra leg to the table. Like it's just
okay.
like how do I just get rid of that?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I can just quickly share my screen. So where's my completed table? Here it is. So when you're over here, you have your components in your assembly listed along here. And then if you want to delete one of them, you can right click on that, and then there will be a delete. So if I were to delete that, it'll give you something like this: features, reference by other features. Do you want to continue? You can click go ahead and delete. It might give you a bunch of errors, but if it's just an extra thing, it shouldn't be too bad.
Okay, and then another question, like my table right now is like upside down, or how do I flip it? Or is it just a rotational view thing?
Can you share your screen so that we can see what you mean? I think it might just be your view. Like, yeah, unless you grounded something, there's really no like.
Oh yeah, I didn't know how to ground either, so I don't think I did that. It's just like this. See how it's upside down?
Oh, I see what happened. So, yeah, I think the holes for your table, like they are on the top of your table, because in your when you were drawing the table, I imagine you put like the holes from your top view. So it's just that the holes for the tabletop are on the top of the table.
Oh, I see. So when I
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah, that's why it looks weird. But if you were to put the holes on the bottom, it wouldn't look like that.
Okay, how would I go about putting the holes on the bottom?
So if you want, you can just go ahead and delete the holes you have right now. Yeah, you can just do that through either through the timeline or through the sketches, whatever. And yeah, so but basically what you would do is you would have like a solid brick for the tabletop, and then from your bottom view you would put in the holes, and you can dimension them all at once, so it's less trouble.
Okay, so it's bottom view rather than top. Okay, I see.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great question, Dahlia. Yeah, so as you can see, we can ask questions either. We have like a solid amount of time set aside for Q&A. So you can ask any questions either they're specific about the design that we were doing, or if they're more broad about CAD software in general, anywhere in between. I actually have a quick question. It's more like personal to you. You host folks, but what is the most like complex thing that you've made in CAD, and what made it like difficult and or fun and or annoying to make? You can have Arturo answer first.
Sure. So I'm in solar car, ESW solar car, and as an engineer, mechanical engineer, we had to kind of go through all of the old files that they had and kind of redesign them. And the ones that I was in charge of, I had to kind of remake the chassis of the whole car. So like working with those 3D drawings and kind of having pipes all over the place. That was pretty challenging, and also working with the suspension of the car and kind of assembling all of that. And I'm trying to, like, all of that is on the drive, and sadly I had to format my laptop since. I'm trying to look for the old files and see if I can open the assembly, and I'll let you all know.
Funnily enough, mine is also car related. So in high school, we were doing like this design competition, and we had come up with this kind of new driving system for a car, where instead of like an engine driving wheels, you would have, if you guys know like the toy Sphero, it's like a ball which you can like control with your phone and it drives around. We basically wanted to have an independently driven wheel for like each corner, and they had to fit into what's called a caster bearing. And yeah, the caster bearing, looks like a hat which sits on the ball, but it had to be tight enough that the ball would sit on there, but not so tight that it would like hinder the motions, and then you'd like CAD the balls and the parts inside them. It was just awful. And also my computer was slow because it was like a school laptop, so I actually, that's a very big challenge in CAD. If your computer starts like lagging or something.
Very nice. Damn, I cannot imagine doing CAD stuff on that scale. But I guess like once you get the individual parts down, it like the skills naturally scale with the scale of the assembly. But yeah, any other questions?
How long does it take to become proficient in like sufficiently proficient, I guess, to make like a actual project for a class or, you know, for actual use.
I think I've only really had like 2 classes in UCSD where we had to use them, being like MAE3, which is like the intro design lab-ish class where you had to make like a robot and like a clock thingy. Then last quarter I actually took another class, but the thing that helped me the most was like being in projects and like especially being like in that solar car project. I think you just sit down and try to like find examples of people that do similar stuff, and you just kind of use all of that stuff for inspiration. The more you practice, of course, the better off you'll be. But hopefully, with what we went through, you'll have like the basics, and you kind of get a better understanding of how to like turn 2D stuff to 3D. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually also offer certification courses for both of these software. And if I remember correctly, they're about 100 hours. I don't know like the exact time length for them, but you know, they're usually about in the range of 100 hours, I would imagine. So if you want to define proficient as in like Autodesk and Solidworks acknowledge you as being good in that software, I would say it's about 100 hours because that's the length of the course. But like you can do a lot just with really basic skills, because oftentimes the point of CAD is not to have something with which you can do like flow simulations or like impact tests. A lot of times it's to make like a computer model of something in the real world so you can work with it. So I would say like 30-ish hours where you spend tinkering, just, you know, figuring out the functions and doing some stuff on your own, you could be pretty good if you keep yourself to your strengths. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm not sure if it's offered for the nano department, but we have this thing called a solid professor, and it gives you like it just gives it goes through the entire SolidWorks AutoCAD Fusion, and you actually get certified for completing like their tutorials. Well, something's trying to open. Yeah, so I believe I'm not sure. I think it was around like 7-8 hours for basic. Like for proficiency, as you said, Joy, and just for like advanced, it's like additional like 8, 9, 10 hours, and that's just for the certification. So Solid Professor is a really good one, and YouTube, people all over the place upload everything to YouTube. So if you kind of want to like model fun stuff, someone has probably already done it, and if not, someone's probably done something similar. So you could just always look that up and kind of go from there.
Great. There was a question in chat opposite to my question, which is, what is your favorite / easiest project you've ever done? You can go Anima and then Arturo.
The easiest thing was a pipe, because I'm an AWT and a lot of our stuff is just pipes. So you make like one pipe and then you just make different lengths of that. So I would say like a pipe or a pipe assembly.
I think I just make like random stuff, or I used to when I was learning. I made like a stand for my Switch that 3D printed, and I just like put it on there. I don't know, I made like a Pac-Man thing, like some chess pieces. I'm just gonna screen share once more, and this is kind of what I was talking about, a chassis. So this is what it ended up being, and it's just a bunch of pipes. And one thing that we didn't go over, but you can also kind of draw like, I know we went over like planes, like really basic, but you can kind of keep redefining planes to kind of sketch like in the air and in 3D and create like pipe-like structures. So yeah, this is supposed to fit a person eventually once Solar Car gets everything together. But yeah, just like a bunch of pipes. And we actually have a physical model of this chassis that we've had to redo. But this is the hardest thing I've had to work on, like redoing the lengths like in between these individual pieces and kind of piecing it all together. Yeah. And of course, if you kind of want to, I forgot there's just a bunch of websites where people upload like their own SolidWorks projects. And now that you have the software, you can kind of open them up and see how people kind of design some stuff if you want to get more practice with it.
I would imagine, like with any software, once you have the basic tools, the best way to learn is to just do. Is to just like find like a simple project like a table or any other simple, maybe like a small piping system or something, and just trying it. And then through trial and error and aggressive Googling, just like we've all learned MATLAB or Excel and things like that, that's typically how you learn a lot of it. So I would encourage y'all to like pick little projects. Like people have made like, yeah, like fun, weird stuff. Like people, 3D printers are all the rage. Like finding something that in theory, if we were back on campus and envision, like what would you want to 3D print? What could you model in your software? And I think that'd be a really good, strong learning experience to get like a fundamental awareness of what it's like to operate in the specific system. Any other questions? We have like about 1-2 minutes left for questions, and we'll wrap up.
Do any of the CADing software programs work for most companies, or do some companies have more preferences?
Speaking like from what I've learned in class, mostly I think if you know Solidworks, you should be like fine, and Fusion is also perfectly fine. Like right now, currently, like for my design class, for my senior class, we're using Fusion to model, to kind of prototype a CNC machine, and the CNC machine just cuts a piece to certain specifications, and we're using Fusion 360 to kind of like make the toolpath and cut a machine and simulate that. And Solidworks is always good to know, but like was mentioned, you can kind of transition between both of them pretty seamlessly, and also Inventor.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies will largely use SolidWorks, but if it's something like international collaboration, Fusion does have the strength of it being cloud-based, so it's much smoother to share files and to share, you know, drawings and stuff.
Nice. All right, we will wrap up here really quick. I'm just gonna share a screen and share these slides. Hopefully our my laptop doesn't break. So one quick business announcement for the quarter from AIChE Projects Leadership is AIChE Projects Leadership's applications. They're due, I believe that's this Friday, the 26th. You can scan the QR code for the Google form. It's also all over in the Slack. We're looking for assistant program director, assistant program manager, assistant research coordinator. All of the information is on the form, but of course, if you have any further questions, you can check our website, check the Slack, or email us at aiche.ucsd.edu, I think is our email. But yeah, that's due very soon. It's a great opportunity. I'm biased, but I think it's a pretty cool job. And other than that, that's all. If you haven't signed in yet, please sign in. There's a QR code. Thank you to Animo and Arturo for being amazing, amazing hosts and mentors, for volunteering their time. And to all you folks who set aside time to join us today. I wish we could do this physically in a lab, but we all went out of our way to have a similar analogous experience over Zoom, and I appreciate it. So yeah, thanks to our hosts. Thanks to everyone for coming.